Pleased to announce and to introduce you to the Chief Executive Officer of Berkshire Hathaway, Mr. Warren Buffett, and I hope he appears behind me right now. There he is.
Hi, Andy. Can you see me? Yeah, here I am.
Hey, Warren, it worked like a charm. Welcome.
I know, it always amazes me.
That's great.
Thank you.
And just to give you an idea of where we are, Warren, you're addressing a Phil ballroom in New York City, and many, many more people than that watching this live streamed.
Terrific.
So we are here to we're here to have a discussion about your giving pledge endeavor. And why don't you start off by just telling those of us who aren't so familiar with that what it is and how you came up with the idea for it.
Yeah, about 6 years ago, Bill and Melinda Gates and I were in Palm Springs and talking about philanthropy, and I'm not sure exactly how it got put together, but Bill and I decided to write David Rockefeller a letter and ask if he would host a dinner in New York for us and a few people that we would invite, just to explore what might be done in order to have more and smarter philanthropy. So David was very gracious. He got together a group of about 15 people. Mayor Bloomberg was there, Ted Turner, Julian Robertson, George Soros, Oprah Winfrey, Eli Broad, and a few others. And we had a dinner, and at that dinner, I started off by asking Eli Broad, who was up on my far right, to explain his philosophy of philanthropy, sort of how he came to it and how he thought about it. And I went around the table, and it probably took 2 hours plus to get around that table. People really wanted to talk about the subject, and it was a subject that to some extent they had trouble talking with many other people about, because it would be a touchy subject sometimes with their children, sometimes with the public, but on a peer-to-peer basis they really were interested. So Bill and I felt there really was something there, and out of that came the idea of organizing a giving pledge, which we would initially, and so far it's been the only group, we would focus on people who had $1 billion or more and who were willing to pledge, make a moral pledge, not a legal pledge, but a moral pledge, to give away at least half of their fortune during their lifetime or at death. And we intentionally avoided the idea of getting people together to sell other people on their own philanthropy or preaching to people generally. What we wanted it to be was a learning experience for everybody involved, and we hoped that it would not only increase the amount of philanthropy by the group, but it would speed it up, and that we would do it smarter. And so we've been in existence a little over 5 years. We have an annual gathering. We have regular or irregular, I should say, sessions within the year on various special subjects for those interested in something like health or education or whatever it might be. And then we've also started a next generation project, because people and their wealth and their children and charity can get very, very complicated, and it's different in every family. And we've found that many of the members of the Giving Pledge really welcome the chance to have their children or even grandchildren participate with other similarly situated children and learn more about philanthropy and maybe broaden their vision somewhat. So in a nutshell, that's it, Andy.
That sounds great, Warren. So, but why is this needed? Don't rich people give away their money all the time?
Yeah, they do. And I would say that we have more than 150 members now. And most of those people, probably at least 80%, we're going to do something very similar to what they'd already made up their mind to do something similar to what they're now pledged to do. But I do think it's caused them to speed up the giving in some cases. I think it's made them smarter in other cases, and I think that it's brought in a few people that have really changed their view on philanthropy. Originally, I started dialing for dollars. I sort of took the Forbes list, and so did Bill, and so did Melinda, and we started calling people. And I remember calling one fellow who was kind of on the fence, and his wife wasn't keen about it at all. And then they actually talked to their 2 children about it, and the children said, go to it. And so it changed their philosophy. And another time I got a letter from a woman. She and her husband had well over $10 billion, and she said that she sent me a couple of ties along with a handwritten note, long handwritten note, saying how much she appreciated the fact that we'd sort of made them focus on what they were going to do with all that money they had. And they sat around and talked about it, and they decided to join the pledge. So every individual is different. I'm sure that there's going to be more money given sooner. An awful lot of that money would have been given anyway, no question about that. And I think that in many cases it will be given smarter, and I think in many cases it's helped the family situation. I think that there have been cases, many cases, as a matter of fact, where the senior part of the family has told me they've always had difficulty talking to their children about it and wondered how the children would feel about the money going to philanthropy instead of them. And it's been a real help in many family situations.
I like that story of the kids telling the parents to give the money away. That's a little unusual, right?
That really surprised me.
Yeah, right.
But you run into everything. You run into families, incidentally, where one kid wants to have it all, and another kid wants to have it all given away.
Yeah.
Each family is different.
Let me ask you though, do you really have to be a billionaire, Warren? I think I see some people on the website maybe who have less than that. Can't I just give you $73 or something?
Well, you can always mail it to me. I accept.
That's why he's Warren Buffett.
What we've done is, if somebody is giving away at least $500 million, in effect, that meets our test, because we're asking billionaires to give away at least 50%. Now, one of the real benefits, I think, of this program has been that we ask all of the pledgers to write us a letter and just tell us how they came to have their present philanthropic beliefs, what really motivates them. And those letters are all published on the givingpledge.org website, and they're remarkable. And I think, last year, for example, the three fellows that run Airbnb joined the pledge, and I tell them, every one of them is worth about 10 of me, because you're going to have young people, particularly in this day and age, that get wealthy very early. And they're going to look to the people that are their heroes, whether it's the Mark Zuckerbergs or whoever it may be, Brian Chesky. And so those letters that are posted there, I think, will be influencing philanthropy 10, 20, 50 years ago, just like Andrew Carnegie's Gospel of Wealth has probably affected people that maybe don't even know they were affected by it. So the letters, I think, are enormously important. We've lent them to the Smithsonian, where they're building a whole philanthropic display with those letters being a part of it. And I think those letters may be more important than the pledges because they're messages to the future. And I've written one, Bill's written one, everybody pretty much has written one, and they're explaining to future generations why people who have had all kinds of good luck showered upon them really may have some feeling about making sure that good fortune spreads out a little bit rather than just benefiting their family.
Let's say, Warren, that you're addressing a group of billionaires right now in this room. Maybe there are some. In fact, I'm sure there are. In this room right now.
Yeah, if you'll just have them all stand up.
Yeah, stand up, will you, please? So Warren Buffett can recognize you, please.
Yeah.
And we got some in the back. Maybe I can't really see, but I want you to talk to the people. Give us your pitch, Warren, and what you say to these billionaires to try to convince them to become a part of the Giving Pledge.
Yeah, well, I just, to some extent, I may tell them, the story of that, like I just told you, of where the children really wanted the parents to do it. I don't think the parents dreamt of that before. But I'll tell them my own view. I mean, I am sitting with a bunch of certificates of Berkshire Hathaway that I bought 55 or so years ago. They're sitting in a safe deposit box. They have no utility to me. They can't do anything for me that 1% of the wealth hasn't already done for me. They can't do anything for my family. In fact, they could probably hurt it in certain ways. So here's a lot of money that has no utility, no real utility to me, and has enormous utility to millions of people, hundreds of millions of people around the world. They can buy vaccines for people. They can provide education. They can do research. There's a million uses for that money that can really change people's lives, whereas it can't change my life. My life has been, anything money can buy, I've had. So, and I just, sometimes I kid them a little bit. If they've got $1 billion, I tell them that, I'm leaving them 500 million, and if they have trouble getting by on 500 million, I'm going to write a book on how to get by on 500 million, and I'll send them an autographed copy.
I hope you could hear people enjoyed that comment. I don't know if you could.
Well,
hear that.
it's just I told one person all they can do with those stock certificates is they can go down once a year and open the safe deposit box, and maybe they can fondle them. And if that gives them a big thrill, I don't want to deprive them of that, but they can have as much fun fondling $500 million worth of certificates as $1 billion. And just think what that $500 million can do when you can. There are important vaccines that can save lives that, they may cost $1 or $2 or something of the sort, and particularly when bought in bulk and bought intelligently. And it's just, the world delivers very uneven results. And, I say that I won the ovarian lottery. I mean, I was born in the United States. I was male. I was white. I was wired to do well in a capitalistic society. But, that does not, that should enable me to have maybe a very wonderful life, but it shouldn't enable me to have it so that, little Buffett great-grandchildren 100 years from now, can sit around and do nothing but fan themselves.
People like that comment too, Warren. You mentioned something that brought a question to my mind, and that is, do you have any idea where the money is going?
Well, we don't tell people what to do. We do have, when we have our annual get-together, for example, we'll have people discuss mistakes they made in philanthropy. We'll have breakout sessions on various subjects, whether it might be Zika currently or something of the sort, but just different subjects where people who have maybe already given money or researched the subject, they get together and talk about smart things to do and dumb things maybe they've done in the past. And we talk about what you might do with your children, in my own case, all three of my kids are actively involved in philanthropy, and I feel terrific about it. And so we talk a lot about family situations, and anything that makes philanthropy smarter, is just like expanding the pool of monies, and we will and we'll learn as we go along. I mean, we've only been at it 5 or 6 years now, and I hope we're smarter about it now than when we started.
Do you think that this effort will address income and wealth inequality?
Well, I think I wouldn't go that far, but I would say this. In 1982, I think that was the first year of the Forbes 400, and I think the total wealth of the 400 was then, I think, 92 billion. Now it's 2.4 trillion. So it has gone up by a factor of more than 25 for one. And there is a greater concentration of wealth in this country than there was 30 or 20 years ago. And what can you do with it? I mean, it seems so obvious to me that you can take wonderful care of yourself, but are 10 houses really better than one? Or do you really want a boat and it's 300 or 400 feet, and now you've got 40 people working on it, and you have to worry about which ones are stealing from you or who's sleeping with who or anything? There comes a point where money really has no real utility. I mean, you can use it to show off maybe, but you can't do much else with it. And I don't think it's good for your family. And it's good it can do wonders for people around the world. But just have had not the breaks. Imagine if I'd been, born in the middle of Africa or someplace, Bangladesh or something. I would, I can say I did all this all by myself, but that's a lot of baloney. I mean, I'm a product of this country. I'm a product of its educational system. I'm a product of the people that have crosses with Normandy. I mean, there have been all kinds of people that have contributed to my well-being that I can't repay specifically, but I can certainly do it in a general way through society, meeting society's needs.
What do you say to people? Good morning. I think he's going to hit you up for money, so be careful about how much you clap. Okay. What do you say to people, Warren? And I've met people who say this. Who put Warren Buffett in charge? I'm going to do my own thing. I don't want to give money to the Giving Pledge. I'll do my own thing. Thank you very much.
That's fine. You know, I mean, I'm all for them just as long as they do it. I have some good friends who are worth $1 billion or more, and they're doing it their own way. I mean, they've got their own private giving pledge, and I'm 100% for them. They don't have to join our group. I just, you know, and we are not going to tell them what to do. I mean, initially, Bill and I came down quite firmly on the point that, you know, we're not going to have these annual meetings or anything like that so that Bill or I or anybody else, you know, preaches to the rest of them that they're doing the wrong thing with their money and they ought to do something else. It's a very, very individual decision. And as you'll see if you look at the letters that are posted at thegivingpledge.org, people come at this in very, very different manners. I mean, you know, some of them just write a few paragraphs, but they're very, I'm thinking of a few letters now that they're very powerful letters, and others, you know, go into more detail about how they got there. But we really aren't there to preach to anybody, and I don't think it would work anyway.
Right. So the Concordia Summit is about public-private partnerships. Have you thought about partnering with companies or with governments with this?
No, I don't think that would work very well. It was interesting. Yeah, I think you might find this interesting, Andy. I initially did not have any view of it extending beyond the United States, but Bill, he travels a lot more than I do, and I've done one or two events with him outside the United States, but he's done a lot of work outside this country, and I think we have more than a dozen countries involved. But when we presented in China together, it was explained to us something I wouldn't have thought of, that the idea of individuals needing to supplement the educational system or the health system in effect might be looked at as a criticism of government's activities in that field, and a couple potential donors mentioned that to us. So you run into these there are big differences in cultures, obviously, and one thing that makes me encouraged, though long range, is that American cultural habits of Americans do seem to spread throughout the world. And one very big thing that happened, this is before the Giving Pledge, actually, it's probably about 8 or 9 years ago. But Li Ka-shing, who's, you know, revered in Asia, gave a talk which you can look up on the internet, and he said for millennia that the accepted practice in Asian societies had been to leave your money to your children, maybe the boys mostly, maybe the oldest boy or whatever. He said everybody thought that was the way to go, and it just became accepted. And Li Ka-shing, maybe 9, 10 years ago, said, as of this day, I have a third son. He has 2 sons. And he said, you know, a third of my wealth is going to go to this society, which is now my third son. Well, that's powerful stuff. And cultures change slowly, but I think you will see a world, not just the United States, but I think you'll see a world that 20, 30, 50 years from now, where it becomes, people think about philanthropy on a big scale at an earlier age, and they think about it on a bigger scale. So I think we're going in the right direction.
I have to ask you about recruiting, Warren. So have you tried to recruit Donald Trump and maybe the Clintons too? I don't know if they're quite wealthy enough, but some would suggest they're getting there. What about them?
Well, I don't think the Clintons are on the Forbes list, and Trump is on the Forbes list. he seems to have an annual argument with him about exactly where he should be placed on the list. No, he's not one I've called. I'm not sure whether Bill's called him or not. We've probably called a majority of the names, but maybe we haven't gotten to the T's yet. I don't know.
All right. Well, we're
if you want to put in Andy, if you want to put in a good word for us with him, maybe he'll call us.
we'll talk about that offline, Warren.
Okay.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to leave it there and let Warren Buffett go. Thanks to everyone here at Concordia and everyone at Yahoo Finance live streaming. And thanks to Warren Buffett, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Warren.
Thanks for having me.
Talk soon.
Okay, thanks for having me, Andy. Okay, bye.